Hey, good morning. Quick office update this morning. I was reading an article about um, the search term housing bubble on Google. And at the end of March, first part of April, the term housing bubble spiked on Google. And so people were searching, is the market in a housing bubble? Now, of course, Google doesn't drive the housing market, but what it does, it shows us what's on people's minds. Like after Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars, the term Will Smith jumped up in the rankings, and the search term Ukraine jumped up in the rankings as well. So, like I say, Google doesn't control the housing market, but it gives us an idea of what's on people's minds. And people are concerned about the housing market. Are we in a housing bubble? I hear that all the time. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. For some reason, many in this generation think that when housing prices rise rapidly, they think we must be in another housing bubble. And that's just not true. Historically, housing crashes have happened in the United States every 80 years. And unfortunately, we're just not in a housing bubble. We've had extreme acceleration in home prices, but we're not in a housing bubble right now. A few reasons why, and I want you to sound intelligent, I guess, when people ask you, are we in a housing bubble? Tell them, no, we're not. And here's the reason why. Number one, housing markets have always been driven by disruption. By a baby boom, by mass migration, by immigration, the end of a war, things like that. The housing market has always reacted to generational shifts. Well, the pandemic set a lot of those generational shifts back. People still got married, people still had babies during the pandemic, those types of things, but they didn't move. Well, now they are. All of that pent up demand over the past 3 years is there. And so people are buying homes. There is no doubt about it. Second thing that the reason why we're not in a housing bubble is because of the 72 million millennials, those between the ages of 25 and 40. 72 million of them, a bigger generation than the boomers even. Those guys are buying houses. They're having kids. They're selling the house they're in and moving up to bigger homes. They're finally getting married and buying their first house. Again, a generational shift. They're also finding out that they can move and work from home. And so they're moving to different parts of the country. Idaho is one of those places. We've been in the top 5 of states that people are moving to the past 5 years. And so that's another reason why we are not in a housing bubble right here in the state of Idaho. And then a third reason why is just supply. Supply and demand. Builders have not got caught up from the demand of 2-3 years ago. They are still almost a year behind. The supply chain is still keeping them backed up. They just can't find the labor. And the demand for new homes is just unreal. And so, unfortunately, it's the old law of supply and demand. People want to buy houses. People want to move to Idaho. All of those people the past 2 and 3 years that came up here and looked for homes and they couldn't find any, they're going to come back. They're still going to move to Idaho one of these days. And so, no, we're not in a housing bubble. And there's a lot of reasons why. Now, what we will see is a slowdown, and that's okay. We may see a more balanced market, but I think we'll still be in a seller's market for many years to come. What we're starting to see is we're seeing, of course, first of all, 40% of homes in the United States are paid off. And so they're in no danger of losing their home. The 60% of homes that have mortgages on them, over 50% of them have greater than 50% equity in their homes as well. So there's tons of equity in the homes that they do own. But here's the problem. You've got people that have a 3% mortgage. Many of us bought homes over the past few years or refinanced into a mortgage that's 3%. We don't really want to sell that home and move into something that's a 5.5%. That just doesn't make sense. Buyers, on the other hand, have seen 3% interest rates for so long, they really don't want to buy a home at 5.5%. And so we've got sellers here not willing to sell in order to move up in a mortgage and pay more for a mortgage. We've got buyers that don't want to get a 5.5% mortgage. They want to wait. We've got this vapor lock that's just sitting there. That too is going to continue to drive the demand for housing up, unfortunately. We're not in a crash. Will we slow down? Absolutely. Be a little bit more of a balanced market? Absolutely. Will we see fewer units being sold? Absolutely. That's just going to happen. So we have to get used to the new reality. Perhaps in 2 to 3 years, Twin Falls and our area will get caught up. And again, we'll see a bit more of a balanced market. But until then, we're not in a housing market or in a housing bubble. The housing market is healthy here. And I encourage you to continue to pursue those millennials as your buyers and pursue sellers especially, because that's where your real business will be. You guys have a great week. Thanks.